Okay, hello guys, it's Hypercanix here, and today I look so ugly. Okay, I'm gonna go, we will be doing another reaction to Mr. Nightmare, but this one, not the animated, because my friend does it. I want to watch the animated one, because he says it's not scary. 3 Subway Stories, or which one do you want to watch?
What?
Which one do you want to watch?
Let's see. 81.
Uptown Funky. This one?
Yeah.
Uptown. I'm gonna go get my freaking hat so I can look nice in the video. Uptown.
I think most people wouldn't know me.
No, we don't know you.
Manoj.
No, we don't know you.
This idea.
Okay, you made 500 entry or whatever, yeah.
When we
But,
hit $1 billion,
yeah, I don't know you.
I thought that is great. And now it's
Maybe you're
$1 billion
famous, but
a
no,
year.
I don't know you.
A little over 1 million bottles a day.
Yeah, and we're gonna skip this ad.
Who are you talking to?
Halloween
He
is
said
the
that
one
maybe
night of the
you
year
might
where
know
being
me, now I
scared
don't
is supposed to
know
be good fun. However, amid all the harmless activities like trick-or-treating, sometimes genuinely frightening and disturbing things can happen. October 31st has been the date of some horrific murders and unexplained disappearances, which are far more terrifying than any ghouls, goblins, or witches. Because they happen to take place on Halloween,
You guys want me to turn off the
mysteries
light?
have an extra aura of creepiness to them, and they remain unsolved to this day. Number 10. The Murders of Ronald Sisman and Elizabeth Platzman. Sometime during the early morning Halloween hours of 1981, a Manhattan couple named Ronald Sisman and Elizabeth Platzman were murdered in their apartment. The couple was severely beaten
Damn,
before
this is
being
not-
shot in the head, execution style,
No
and the
wonder.
apartment was
I'm
completely
fucking scared.
ransacked. Sisman was rumored to be involved with
Frankie
drugs,
does.
so
Hey,
authorities
don't
initially
be in the
believed
other
that to be the
5
motive of
minutes.
the killings. However, the
Stop
case
it.
was confirmed when a prison informant claimed
I
that
was
one of
doing
his
a
fellow
reaction
inmates had
before.
somehow predicted the crime weeks before it actually happened. That inmate
Wait.
turned out to be none other than the
Wait,
notorious
no
son of
way.
Sam killer, David Berkowitz.
Bitches.
In 1977, Berkowitz was
Ooh,
convicted of
wow.
a series of shootings which took the lives of 6 victims and left 7 others wounded. There has always been speculation that Berkowitz was involved with the satanic cult and did not commit all the Son of Sam murders on his
They
own.
could not see
According to the informant, Berkowitz had told
like
him that his
better.
cult was planning to enter a residence in Cambridge Village on Halloween. They would perform a ritual murder by shooting a couple in the head before ransacking the place to remove incriminating evidence. When questioned about this, Berkowitz claimed that Sisman possessed snuff footage of one of the Son of Sam shootings and was planning to hand it over to authorities to avoid some drug charges. While no evidence was found to support Berkowitz's claims, he did provide an eerily accurate description of Sisman's apartment. No one knows if the murders of Sisman and Platzman had anything to do with the Son of Sam case, but they're still unsolved. Number 9. The disappearance of Cindy Song. Cindy Song was a 21-year-old South Korean student attending
I don't know, you wanted to
Pennsylvania
watch
State
this one.
University.
The murder one.
In 2001, she dressed up in a bunny costume
Well, now
and
we have to
attended a
watch it.
Halloween party at a nightclub in State College. After leaving the club, Cindy spent the next few hours hanging out with her friends before she was dropped off at her apartment at 4 a.m.
Then she got killed.
This was the last anyone ever saw of her.
Damn.
After Cindy was
If you
reported
like
missing,
see some
a
lights in the
search was
background, it's just
conducted
like
of
my
her
TV. We
apartment.
have the lights turned off.
There was no sign of any
just my
struggle
TV. You
with
just have
any
it
of
on
her
for the
belongings,
second.
including the false eyelashes from her costume, were there,
Well, no,
indicating
not really.
that she had gone inside after being dropped off. But what happened to her afterward? Shortly thereafter, a witness reported seeing a woman resembling Cindy in the Chinatown district of Philadelphia. This woman was inside a vehicle with an unidentified male and crying for help. A bizarre lead came about in 2003 when a Luzerne County man named Hugo Marcus
That's
Selensky
creepy
was
as hell.
arrested after the remains of 5 people were found buried in his backyard. Even though none of the remains belonged to Cindy, an informant told police that Selensky and an accomplice named Michael Jason Krakowski Jr. had
Michael
abducted her.
Jackson.
After Cindy was raped and killed, the 2 men allegedly buried her body at another location. Krakowski's remains were found in Selensky's backyard, and the informant claimed that Krakowski was murdered for keeping Cindy's bunny ears as a souvenir. So far, no evidence was found to tie Selensky to Cindy's disappearance, but in January 2014, The burned remains of a dozen more people were found buried on his property. It remains to be seen if any of them will be identified as Cindy San. Number 8. The murder of Nima Louise Carter. On Halloween night in 1977, the parents of 19-month-old Nima Louise Carter placed their child inside her crib at their Lawton, Oklahoma home. The next morning, Nima's parents were shocked to discover that she was missing. Since the windows in Nima's bedroom were locked, it's theorized that her abductor had been hiding in her closet and snuck the child out of the house while her parents were sleeping in the living room. A month later, a group of kids were playing in an abandoned house 4 blocks away from the Carter home. When they opened up the house's refrigerator, they received a horrifying shock when the decomposed body of an infant came tumbling out. The child was identified as Nima Louise Carter, who died of suffocation. A similar crime had occurred in Lawton in April 1976, when a pair of 3-year-old twin sisters, Mary and Tina Carpenter, were lured out of their home by a young woman and forcibly confined inside a fridge at another abandoned house. When the sisters were found 2 days later, Mary had suffocated, but Tina managed to survive. Tina identified her abductor as a local teenage babysitter named Jacqueline Rubadux. However, the child's age made her testimony unreliable, and there wasn't enough evidence to file charges at that time. Jacqueline Rubadux eventually became a babysitter for Nima Louise Carter. She was an obvious suspect after Nima's murder, but once again, there was no evidence to implicate her. Years later, Rubadux was finally charged with Mary Carpenter's murder and given a life sentence. She died in prison of liver cancer in 2005, but never admitted to the still unsolved mystery of Nima Louise Carter.
Nemo.
Number 7. The murder of Chaim Weiss. Chaim Weiss was a 15-year-old Orthodox Jewish boy attending a Jewish high school in Long Beach, New York. The morning after Halloween in 1986, the entire school was horrified when Chaim was found murdered on his dorm room floor. He was repeatedly stabbed in the head, but no murder weapon could be found anywhere. Since there was no evidence of a struggle, it seemed likely that Chaim was killed in his bed while he slept before his body was moved to the floor. Chaim was a very liked boy, so no one could figure out a possible motive for the crime. There were signs that the killer was familiar with the religious customs of Orthodox Judaism. Even though it had been a chilly night, the window in Chaim's room was left open, a custom which is often done to let the deceased person's spirit out. After the murder, one of the school's rabbis left a memorial candle to burn in Chaim's room. 2 days later, a second candle appeared, but no one ever admitted to putting it there. There were no signs of forced entry anywhere, indicating the killer may have been familiar with the dormitory. During the night, another student on Chaim's floor remembered being momentarily awakened when the door to his room was opened before it was immediately shut again. Could the killer have initially entered the wrong room by mistake? After 28 years, authorities have never been able to find a suspect or any answers about why Chaim Weiss was murdered in such a brutal fashion. Number 6. The identity of Orange Socks. On Halloween in 1979, the unidentified body of a young woman was found in a concrete culvert near Interstate 35, just outside of Georgetown, Texas. The victim appeared to be in her 20s and had been sexually assaulted before she was strangled to death. It seemed likely that she was murdered that very same day, and the only unique clue to her identity was a silver oval-shaped ring on her hand. The victim was nude, and the only garment of clothing she had on was a pair of orange socks. Since the young woman was never identified, Orange Socks became her nickname. Years later, serial killer Henry Lee Lucas confessed to the murder of Orange Socks. He even stated that he had sex with her corpse after she was dead. However, Lucas did not know the woman's identity. He claimed he picked her up while hitchhiking and only remembered that her name was Joanne or Judy. After being sentenced to death for the woman's murder in 1984, Lucas took back his confession in order to have his sentence changed. Further investigation showed that Lucas was likely working in Florida on the day of the murder. Lucas was notorious for frequently confessing to murders he never committed, and no one is sure how many people he's actually killed. Henry Lee Lucas died in prison in 2001, but Orange Socks is not the only unidentified murder victim that he's been connected to. Number 5. The missing trick-or-treater. In 2007, 12-year-old Bradley Hirsch was trick-or-treating with a group of friends in Colorado. The boys who were with Bradley early on in the night said that they were just going along with their trick-or-treating when one of the boys picked up on the fact that Bradley was missing. They retraced their steps in an attempt to find him, and disturbingly found his cowboy hat sitting by the curb. Bradley was dressed in a homemade cowboy costume that day. A little ways up the road, Bradley's bag of candy was found as well, spilled out onto the street, almost leaving a trail. That was the last of Bradley's possessions that were found by the boys that night. It's unknown how Bradley disappeared without anyone noticing, but the most likely explanation would have to be that Bradley at some point wandered off on his own, leaving him vulnerable to predators on their favorite night of the year. But the only thing that may take away some credibility of that possibility would be the fact that a week later, Bradley's mother found his glasses in the backyard. The strange part? Bradley's friends all said he was wearing glasses the last time they saw him. Bradley is still missing to this day. Number 4. In 1982, 69-year-old Marvin Bradley lived with his wife
It was at least,
in
dude, it
Fort
was like
Dodge,
a
Iowa.
9:55.
On Halloween that year, the Bradlins
The
were
time?
handing out candy to trick-or-treaters who came to their house. At one point, they answered the door and were surprised to see a man wearing a mask. He said, "Trick or treat, give me your money or I'll shoot." The Bradlins thought someone was playing a Halloween prank and tried to remove the man's mask, but he wouldn't let them. Instead, the masked man entered the house and pulled out a gun. He demanded that the couple bring him down to the basement and give him all the money they had stashed in their safe. The Bradlins became suspicious since very few people knew they even had a safe in their basement. For this reason, Marvin was still convinced that a friend or family member was still playing a Halloween trick on them. When the masked man led the Bradlins through the kitchen to the basement, Marvin made a grab for the gun. The intruder wound up shooting Marvin in the throat before fleeing the house and inexplicably leaving his mask behind. Ethel was so traumatized by her husband's death that she died only a few months later. Over the years, an acquaintance of the Bradlin family had allegedly bragged about committing the murder, so DNA testing was performed on the mask. However, there wasn't enough usable material for an adequate test, so there's still no evidence to charge the suspects, and this mystery still remains unsolved. Number 3. The death of the Key West newborn. On the morning of October 31st, 2004, a housekeeper at the Hilton Resort in Key West, Florida, found something in the garbage bin of the ladies' room in the lobby. She may have initially assumed it was a Halloween prank, but the situation became truly horrific once she realized she had found the body of a newborn infant girl. The child still had the umbilical cord and the placenta attached to her body, indicating that someone recently gave birth to this girl and decided to just toss her into the trash. It didn't take authorities long to figure out who was responsible. Hours earlier, a young pregnant woman and 3 male companions were seen walking through the hotel lobby. She entered the ladies' room while the men waited outside. At one point, a female witness went into the washroom and heard the pregnant woman moaning inside the stall. When the witness asked the 3 men if they knew the woman, one of them claimed to be her boyfriend. He even called out her name at one point, which sounded like Samantha or Sonia, according to the witness. The pregnant woman was in the bathroom for approximately 40 minutes, and a security guard saw her clutching her stomach when she exited. When the guard asked if she was alright, he was told she had gotten sick by partying too much at the nearby Fantasy Fest. The 4 individuals were escorted out of the hotel, but the child was not discovered until morning. Fingerprints, blood samples, and DNA evidence were taken from the washroom and compared to several suspects. However, the mother and the 3 men have yet to be identified, and no one has been prosecuted for the newborn's death.
Alright, so right
Number
now it's
2,
gonna end.
the mysterious death of Chris
So
Jenkins.
I'm just saying, please comment down below. Smash that like button. And subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm not gonna end the video until like it ends by itself, but yeah.
Chris Jenkins was a 21-year-old student from the University of Minnesota who visited a downtown Minneapolis bar on Halloween night in 2002. After leaving the bar around midnight, Chris vanished without a trace. He remained a missing person for 4 months until his body was discovered in the Mississippi River. Since Chris was still wearing his Halloween costume, all indications were that he died shortly after he disappeared. Chris was heavily intoxicated that night and since his cause of death was determined to be
Bye, my little
drowning,
ninjas.
authorities
It's
initially
5 minutes
believed it
now.
was an accident or suicide.
My little